Hello, welcome to the podcast version of The Poet, written by Robert R. Ritz and read by the author. The story contains mature content and harsh language. There may be some content which may offend some listeners. If you're easily offended, please stop listening now. Thank you for checking out the story, and I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. The air was still and lifeless. Nothing stirred as I searched the darkness for a sign of him. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could hear my pulse in my ears. Whoosh, 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 sounded like a slowed-down fetus ultrasound. I strained my ears listening, trying to catch a hint where he could be. A bead of sweat dripped into my eyes, and it burned like hell. At least I hoped it was only sweat. The exchange of gunfire and ensuing mayhem could have easily nailed me, but I was still on my feet, still alert, and still scared shitless. I took a few more steps into the room, and my eyes were adjusting to the blackness. I could see the shapes of shelves and desks. Maybe he didn't come in here, the voice in my head said. No, he did. I know he did. I took another step, and a different smell was there, metallic, coppery. I strained and could see there was blood smeared on the ground. I took a single step back and froze silently. I waited. Barely audible was a sound of controlled breathing. I traced the outlines of the tables and pictured in my mind where the breathing could be coming from. I closed my eyes and focused on the sound, adjusting slowly, calmly. I opened my eyes and with purpose squeezed off a single round. My hand felt the explosion travel up my arms, and the room was filled with the roar of my .40 caliber Glock 27. I heard a grunt and a sickening sound of wet meat hitting the ground, followed by the slow trickling sound of uncontrolled bleeding. I cautiously approached the table and peered around it. There he was. Might have been a lucky shot, might not have been. All I knew is he was dead and I was alive. There was a heaviness in the air, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I studied his body and watched for any sign of life. I could have spotted him in a crowded room with 200 people easily. I must have busted him personally at least 10 times, for everything from armed robbery to murder, and he always ended up back on the street. He was tall, slender frame with ebony dark skin. He had no blemishes on his face, which was surprising considering the tough crowd he rolled with. On his lap was a MAC-10 submachine gun. I reached up to my head to wipe away the sweat, and wasn't all that surprised to pull back my arm and see blood there. I guess I didn't want to admit to myself that I'd been hit, so I'd lied to myself. My head ached as I realized I was hurt. I looked down at him again and decided to be safe. Nothing personal. I put a slug in his head and another in his chest. I holstered my weapon and moved to the wall. I nudged the long locks from my face and gently probed around my head. Right above my left ear, 3 inches up, almost to the top of my head, there was a large gash. He was alive with a searing pain suddenly, and I fought back the tears and the impulse to yell. "Fuck," I said almost under my breath. I pulled out my cell phone and pressed number 3 on the keypad. I noticed my hands were still shaking. Must be the adrenaline. 3 heartbeats later. "Castillio, where are you?" I grinned. He sounded concerned. "I'm at the old Power Exchange building, 74 Otis." I was answered by a slight snicker on his end. "What the hell you doing there? Getting some action?" I grunted. "Shut up and listen. I got him." A pause. "Who?" I couldn't hold back the grin. "I got grave Diggah." A long pause. "You shitting me?" I let a mixture of a laugh and a groan out. "Nope, I wouldn't do you like that, Drake. I got him. But I'm hurt. Not sure how bad. I'll tell you all about it when you get here. How's about you and Preston come down and help a girl out?" "Shit, we're on our way. Where specifically are you?" "Bottom level. When you see the dungeon decor, I'm close. I'm a little lightheaded, need to sit down. I'll keep an ear out." "Don't fucking die." "Wouldn't dream of it. Besides, you owe me 100 merrills for this one." He laughed at that. "On our way." "Hurry up." I hung the phone up and sat with my back against the wall. I sat there for a second, calming myself down and replaying the night in my head like a vivid DVD. Suddenly, someone clicked pause on my playback as I heard the sound of someone walking. It wasn't Drake or Preston. You could hear those guys a mile away. This was more cat-like and purposeful. I pulled my piece out again and waited. I heard the footsteps pass by outside the room in the hallway, and it just continued on. I waited a couple seconds debating if I should even bother checking it out. It wasn't like this was a freelancer zone. It was a patrolled area with ACU and USU. There were a lot of con running around, and Gravedigger was a high-ranking thug, but the footsteps seemed different. Just leave it. I nodded. Yeah. One tussle was more than enough for one night. So I sat there quietly for a few more minutes. The air had movement in it, and a smell of cinnamon and cider wood. I knew it was cider because of Mr. Stinky, my cat. I used cider wood to help the cat litter since I was usually out. A cold chill shook me to my core, and icy fingers played at the base of my spine. I realized I wasn't alone in the room anymore. My grip on my pistol tightened. I strained my senses again and scanned the room. I didn't hear any breathing, no noise, but I could feel someone. My cell phone vibrated loudly. With my left hand, I had it out quickly. I silenced it and sent to call the voicemail. I slowly stood up and began to circle the room with my back to the wall. I glanced down at where Gravedigger was at, and the only thing there was a huge puddle of blood in a small golden envelope. I cleared the room quickly and came back to where the golden envelope was at. I stood there waiting. I could hear the stampede running down the stairs. By the sound of it, Drake brought more than just Preston. It sounded like he brought the whole damn USU with him. I could hear them clearing each room. "Down here, guys!" I yelled up to them. I prepared my eyes as lights beamed into the room. The envelope caught the glint of the light, and I could see written in the most beautiful script I had ever seen with my own eyes, "Night." I felt a firm grip on my shoulder, and the overpowering smell of cologne assaulted my nose. "Damn it, Preston. You don't need to bathe in that shit." He grinned at me. He was tall, easily 6'5", and there was no guess at the fact that he was German, chiseled featured with strong jaw and deep, piercing blue eyes. "We can't all smell like flowers, babe. Wow, you jacked up. Medic!" I could see Drake behind him, surveying the scene. Drake was easily the thinnest and shortest of all the guys in the room, and yet he demanded respect. He had an aura about him of "don't fuck with me." It wasn't your traditional little man complex. He was the real deal. His leather jacket creaked and groaned as he moved. He turned to face me. "Castillio, nice mess upstairs. You're doing?" I shrugged. "Depends. If you're talking about the two other I nailed earlier." He shook his head. "No. I'm talking about the 3 dozen heavily armed thugs upstairs." My mind reeled. 3 dozen? How? I didn't hear any shooting. By the looks of it, they were sliced and diced. He made a gesture with his thumb across his neck. The icy feeling in my spine spread, and the stone-cold stare said he was thinking the same thing I was. "You don't think it was him?" I started. "You tell me, baby girl. You're here playing fucking Rambo. Where's Gravedigger?" I pointed to the pooled blood. "He was there." "What the fuck you mean he was there? You move him?" I shook my head. A medic was on me, helping me sit down while he checked me out. I could see Preston eyeing the golden envelope. "Yo, Drake, we got a golden envelope here." Drake nodded and walked closer. "Yeah, my eyes work. I could see that." They bickered like a married couple, but that was because they were close. Closer than friends, they had saved each other's lives more times than they could count. "You want me to open it?" Preston was spooked about it, and he was trying to play tough guy when it was obvious no one wanted to fuck with the envelope at all. The medic was shining a light in my eye. "You're gonna need stitches, but other than that, you look fine." I smiled. "Thanks." "Castillio, you want to do the honors?" I walked over to the envelope, and Drake handed me some latex gloves. I picked it up out of the pool of blood which played tug-of-war with me for a second. Preston had an evidence bag ready for me. I dropped it in and played Operation with the flap and pulled out the letter inside. The writing inside it was also as beautiful as the envelope. I read through the letter. "Gentleness in your eyes, and yet inside you your soul is ablaze. Resting ever so gently against the wall, you appeared in a daze. A moment or two would have been all it took for me, you see. Vengeance was supposed to be mine, but it was you and not me. Endless inside of us is the appetite that I must feed. Doing what I do is not a game, it fulfills a need. I have done this before now, and I shall do it again. God has a plan for you, and what you did was not sin. Go over it again and again and again, and at the end, I guess you'll just have to figure how I snatched away your..." Preston looked at Drake, and then me, and back to Drake. "Snatched away what?" I read down the left-hand side of the poem and saw the answer. "Gravedigger." Drake said as I read it. I looked around a blood puddle. There was nothing there other than the blood, and the void where the envelope was. No blood splatters, no blood trails, nothing. That's it? That's all that's on the letter? I nodded and gently put it back in the evidence bag. Drake looked at me long and hard, and for a brief moment I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Fear. Fleeting, but it was there. Go get stitched up. We'll cover the scene here. I'm sure Knight will want to see your report ASAP. Bagging grave digger is one thing. Running across the poet is something entirely different. The room paused almost in unison when he mentioned the poet. Everyone picked back up pace, and Preston helped me out of the club. I refused the ambulance ride and rode with Preston to the hospital. I suddenly didn't mind the overpowering cologne he was wearing because I realized I was alive and everything had a new freshness to it. I almost enjoyed the ride to the hospital, but one line kept bugging me from the poem. Endless inside of us.